Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons and horror. On a brief break from our exploration of the Land of the Mists, today we will cover the new Domain of Mordent and Lord Wilfred Godfroy, as presented in the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft, and provide some feedback on the changes introduced for the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Are you ready? So let's explore this new version of Mordent and find out what new horrors are unveiled by the mist of 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Hour of the Raven. The New Mordent is a Ravenloft domain that explores the themes of ghost stories and gothic horror. The domain continues to be portrayed as an idyllic countryside region, filled with dark misty swamps and haunted mansions, where ancient curses wield their power and restless spirits haunt. Although Mordent has remained unchanged in his main narrative proposal, the geography of the region is drastically altered, and the haunted past of these lands is greatly simplified. The main inspiration of the Domain of Mordent remains the English countryside, with an almost Victorian-era ambience, where society lives according to ancient traditions and powerful aristocratic families inhabit old mansions, hiding terrible secrets, powerful curses, and spectral hauntings. The new region of Mordent is a haunted domain, where the spirits of the dead find no rest, thanks to the evil influence and actions of Lord Wilfred Godfroy, and the result of a strange scientific experiment. As a result, this is a region where ghosts and specters abound, and everyone who lives in Mordent knows countless macabre stories of hauntings. In the classic Ravenloft setting, the Mordent domain was an important core domain, which housed many important characters that could serve as allies or mentors for the players. The more subtle horrors that haunted this domain made the region a suitable domain to serve as a home base for heroes, or to serve as an introduction to the gothic themes of Ravenloft. Although part of these characters, who can serve as allies and mentors to the heroes, have returned with the new edition, with the new proposal of the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft to isolate the domains in the mists, this domain becomes more focused on their own haunted story plots. In the Mordent from the classic Ravenloft, the ghost of Lord Wilfred Godfroy stalked the living and captured the spirits of the recently deceased, enslaving them under his power in his haunted abode. In the new Mordent, Lord Wilfred Godfroy remains a tyrant who enslaves spirits to his will, yet no spirits, not even those who had never met this evil Darklord, find rest in the afterlife, and the land is haunted by countless specters of their ancestors. The new Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft gives a great focus to how dungeon masters can create mystery adventures involving ghosts, and a third of the entire chapter describing Mordent features different tables, which suggest ideas or randomizations for quick creation of a ghost antagonist for a haunting adventure. While this content may be useful, the consequence of the space it occupies in the chapter is that Mordent is a very underdescribed domain. If, on one hand, the essence of the themes of the previous domain were maintained, the region gains a new map, full of new locations, of which we know very little or nothing. Mordent's new map is quite different from the map previously presented in older editions. The only locations that can be found in the different editions are its largest city, Mordentshire, and the town of Idlethorpe. The city of Mordentshire changes very little in its description, and remains a seaport city, ravaged sometime by gales and storms, and remaining the rest of time under a dense fog. It is also in the vicinity of this city that you will find the haunted house of the Griffin Hill, as well as the Hidden House, the home of the Weathermay family, and the herb shop of the famous monster hunter Dr. Rudolf van Richten. Although the city remains largely unchanged, its most famous inhabitants undergo some slight changes. Lord Jules Weathermay, the once ruler of these lands, is now deceased, and the leadership of the family falls to the Mayor of Mordentshire, Alice Weathermay. Alice Weathermay is secretly blackmailed by the ghost of Lord Wilfred, who keeps the spirit of her late husband Daniel Foxgrove imprisoned. The plot presented briefly in the Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft is identical to that presented in past editions, with the difference that the roles of Daniel Foxgrove, formerly the Mayor, and Alice Weathermay, who was previously an imprisoned spirit, were swapped. Other residents who had changes were Dr. Rudolf van Richten and Alice Weathermay's daughters, the twins Laurie and Jennifer Weathermay. The old hunter was missing and likely dead in older editions, but the new book ignores these past events and brings the iconic character back to life. As for the twins Laurie and Jennifer Weathermay, the changes in their characters were mainly about their appearance and ethnicity, which were changed for this new version of the scenario. The only other city that receives any mention in the text is the city of Idlethorpe, but nothing is described about the city other than it sits at the foot of the Punchinel Manor. These brief descriptions rescue a character and location from the book Children of the Night they created, an artificer who creates strange flesh golems sealed from different body parts. Despite rescuing this character from old editions, the new book attests that he was murdered by his own creations. Of the several new locations that are presented on the map, the only one described by the book is the Sigil Lakes, 3 strange lakes in a geometric formation that are located in the middle of a swampy region. A group of druids had settled in the nearest town of Glaston to unveil a ritual that allowed them to open a passage to places with similar geometric formations in distant lands. These druids have mysteriously disappeared, and the region became haunted by animal spirits, which now hunt the living. The new Mordent map has other locations with intriguing names, such as the Sculpting Cove, Bent Key Causeway, Avalon Bay, Hag's Walk, and Locust Branch Hospital, but no additional information is given about these locations, which needed to be developed by narrators or future supplements. One such location, the town of Crawford, is a curious addition to the Domain of Mordent. The city originally appeared in Dungeon Magazine 65, in the adventure Unkindness of Ravens, but despite the adventure's gothic themes, the city was not situated in Ravenloft and could be inserted into any setting of the narrator's choice. The reference becomes explicit when the city is mentioned in one of the tables with adventure ideas, which repeats some premises of the original adventure and involves the hunt for a rare raven who defends the city from a greater threat. The Dark Lord of the new Domain of Mordent is still the ghost of the aristocrat Wilfred Godfroy, but he undergoes a reinterpretation. The Van Richten Guide to Ravenloft does not give stats for Dark Lords, but it does establish that Lord Wilfred has the same stats as a ghost. He has at his commands countless spirits he has imprisoned in the house of the Griffin Hill, and who must serve him or suffer his abuse. The basic details of his past are still the same, and he is described as an angry and abusive man. Lord Wilfred is an arrogant ghost, and believes he is always surrounded by idiots and incompetents. He has no patience for insults, disrespects, and provocations, to which he responds with brutality and violence. The proud aristocrat is selfish and only values his own vision and perspective. He believes the house of the Griffin Hill is the ancestral home that carries the history of his proud lineage and has a deep connection with the location. Despite this connection, The past of the House of the Griffin Hill is not highlighted in the new edition. The manor is no longer home to an ancient and unknown evil supernatural force, and no longer has ancient links to the history of Mordent. Lord Wilfred Godfroy also undergoes changes to his background, which simplified the history of the character and the lands of Mordent. His first crime was the murder of his father, which made him a wealthy heir to the family fortune. He later murdered his wife Stell and daughter Penelope in a fit of rage, although the details and circumstances of this crime, or how he escaped justice, are not detailed in the new book. Wilfred Godfroy's fate is very similar to that described in previous issues. After murdering his family, he became haunted by the ghost of his wife and daughter, and after a year of enduring these torments, he committed suicide. His spirit found no rest and became a ghost. However, he found no peace in this existence, as his wife and daughter continued to haunt him, and now his father's ghost has joined them as well. Godfroy possessed the body of an adventurer to try to drive the spirits of his family from the House of the Griffin Hill. But this adventurer died in the process, became a ghost, and proceeded to haunt the house of his ancestral manor, accusing Godfroy of his crimes. Tormented by the spirits of his victims, he sought another kind of help among the living. He began to haunt an alchemist named Richten, pressured him to develop studies on the essence of souls. The alchemist yielded to the pressure and created the Apparatus, a complex machine capable of manipulating the essence of souls, separating the soul from a living body, or transferring souls between bodies. Lord Godfroy desired the mechanism to destroy the restless spirits and free him from this eternity of torment. However, when the machine was activated, it had the opposite effect. The energy released by the machine decimated the entire population of the region of Mordentshire, and brought upon Mordent the effect that now prevents the spirits of the dead from finding rest in the afterlife. This terrible tragedy brought the Domain of Mordent to the demiplane of dread, and Lord Wilfred Godfroy became its new Darklord. Despite becoming a Darklord, Godfroy continues to lead a tormented existence, and avoids contact with the ghosts of his family members, who do not miss the opportunity to accuse him of their murders. He still hasn't given up on his goal of using the Apparatus, and believes that the machine is the only solution to escape his torments. Despite his arrogance, he has no idea how to use the complex machine, and suffers frustration every time the Apparatus fails to achieve his goals. He blames the incompetent spirits who serve him for his failures, and is always on the lookout for people who may have knowledge on how to improve the machine. Countless times he has possessed or kidnapped mad geniuses to activate the machinery, which always result in catastrophic and unpredictable events. In one of these numerous experiments, the elven vampire Janderson Star was helping an alchemist to experiment with the Apparatus. He believed that the machine would free him from his condition of vampirism, and volunteered to be a test subject for the experiment. The machine did not provide the desired result of ending his undead condition, and spawned countless clones of Yonder Sunstar, scattered across multiple planes of existence. Many still prefer to stick the old classic version of Mordent, or try to integrate elements from the characters and locations of both versions. The truth is that the Domain of Mordent, although it has been completely changed in this geography, does not receive any description of its new localities. The domain as presented is vague and empty. It is described as a society attached to traditions and the history of its ancestors, but it does not describe anything about this history or the past of its great aristocratic families. To all those who intend to use the domain as written in the 5th edition, I recommend using the history of the great aristocratic families, as described in the Ravenloft Gazetteer 3, a supplement for the 3rd edition of D&D. Beyond this problem, the basic proposal of the Mordent domain remains the same, and the domain is an excellent option for those who want to narrate ghost stories. The main changes to the story of Lord Wilfred Godfroy in Mordent are only to simplify the story of Mordent and to exclude the troubled participation of Count Strahd and Azalin in the events of the House of the Griffin Hill module. Now, the Apparatus is the object of Lord Wilfred's direct obsession, and remain an instrument capable of generating chaos and developing important narrative elements. If I were to adapt something from the Mordent proposed by the 5th edition to the classic Ravenloft setting, I would take advantage of the idea that the Apparatus remain in Mordent, and that it may be being used by Lord Wilfred Godfroy for sinister purposes. I will never trade the events of the module House of the Griffin Hill for the altered and simplified version presented in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, but the idea that Lord Godfroy may have rebuilt the Apparatus from the old destroyer original machinery is intriguing. What could the infamous Darklord of Mordent do to rebuild such powerful machinery? Could he now capture the living as well, to exchange the souls of their bodies for those of his ghostly servants? Perhaps the Lord of Mordent himself could use the machinery to temporarily take over a victim's body and interfere more directly in Mordent's life. Perhaps he could even assume the identity of the renowned aristocrats of the Weathermay family. And you, what do you think of the new version of Mordent from the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft? Do you intend to use elements of which of these versions in your narrative and games? Join us, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, and in the next video we will resume our journey as we get to know more closely the Weathermay family, the aristocrats that rules the lands of Mordent, and also shelter valiant heroes and champions against the forces of darkness.